You're charged with a motoring offence and you're wondering, do I plead guilty? Do I plead not guilty? I'm Neil Davis, owner and senior partner of Caddick Davis Solicitors. Today, we're talking about motoring offences and the question, should I plead guilty or should I plead not guilty? The truth is, you'll find lots of different information on the web. You might even receive different advice from different lawyers as to whether or not your plea is guilty or not guilty. The most important thing I'd say to you, irrespective of who you're speaking to, is educate yourself on the law, and fundamentally, it comes down to this. 2 golden rules. These are the most simple rules that you will ever see. If you've committed the offence, if you know you're guilty, the starting point is probably that the right plea is guilty. If you haven't committed the offence, if you've done nothing wrong, if you feel that you're being wronged by being accused, then obviously the starting point is a not guilty plea. Now, I have to say, there are some circumstances where it perhaps becomes a little bit more complex than that. So, as an example, you might be charged with a drink driving offence. You might in your heart know that you've committed the offence, that you've made a mistake, it wasn't deliberate, it was just perhaps a bad decision, a misjudgment, a bad decision after a night out. Now, the consequences of pleading guilty in that kind of situation, or in fact are likely to be severe, in the sense that you're going to be disqualified from driving for a minimum of 12 months, and dependent upon your breath alcohol reading, possibly a lot longer. Now, in those type of cases, there is a distinction in some ways in law between whether or not you're morally guilty and whether or not you're found guilty in law. Because of course, all of us are innocent until proven guilty, and it's always for the prosecution to prove that you've committed the offence. Now, in those cases where the consequences are severe, some people might look and say, well, hold on, I know I've done it, but the consequences are going to be so severe that I at least need to have a go. Now, it might be in those cases that you do have a go, that you enter a not guilty plea, that you make technical challenges to the case, and you make the prosecution prove that you've committed the offence such that you are convicted of the offence. But I think that is very much a personal question for each and every individual. And I would say this, that if it is such a case, if you are making that type of decision, it should be your decision and you should enter that decision in an educated way. If you're thinking I should plead guilty to this and someone is trying to persuade you to plead not guilty, then there's a problem. Because fundamentally, if someone rings up a lawyer and says, look, I'm guilty of the offence, I want to plead guilty, and a lawyer starts saying to you, no, I think you should plead not guilty, then that's poor advice, because it's not your decision. And in all likelihood, it's that lawyer, sadly, trying to make a bit more money on that case. In summary of all of this, our starting point when we look at guilty pleas and not guilty pleas is, first of all, have you committed the offence? Do you think you've committed the offence? Do the prosecution have the evidence? Then it's probably a guilty plea. In other cases, if you're definitely sure you haven't committed the offence, if you've done no wrong, or indeed if the evidence just isn't there, then you're absolutely not guilty. And in all those cases that fall in between, where you're thinking, well, I'm guilty, but I might want to try and defend the case to avoid these horrible consequences, I think the most important thing is you enter that process with knowledge, with guidance, and most of all, truthfulness. Because in that type of case, if you try and challenge it, there can be no guarantee of success at the end. Yes, you will give yourself a chance, and in some cases, and indeed a fair number of cases, you will be found not guilty at the end of it. However, there is absolutely no guarantee of that ultimately, and that's where you need to be careful. So hopefully this bit of advice helps, and hopefully when you speak to any lawyer, you can perhaps apply that in any conversations that you have. If it has been helpful, please share it to your network, like and subscribe.